Interview with Natalie, the owner of VWax. We've got a few waxing questions for you. So, what advice would you give someone who has grazed or bruised a client? Like, what procedure should they follow to ensure that they've covered every aspect of that incident?
So if a therapist has bruised or grazed a client, first of all, they need to apologise. They need to acknowledge what has happened and obviously advise like the next steps. So obviously if it's a bruise, it's due to the therapist not removing the wax parallel to the skin. They've lifted the skin, which is why it's incurred bruising. So they obviously need to address it. Tell the customer, it might take a few days, for it to go down. But most importantly, that bruise, graze, whatever it may be, it needs reporting in an accident book. So every premises should always have an accident book. No matter how small, no matter how big it is, everything needs to be reported. Just because if it isn't, or if it doesn't get reported, that customer could go away and make it a lot worse than what it actually is. So for instance, myself and all my staff, if anything ever happened, in which mistakes do happen sometimes, it's very, very rare if obviously you're trained correctly, but if anything did ever happen, even down to knocking spatulas off a trolley, that would in my business be reported, just because the incident happens. If it's written down very specifically, so if it was a bruise on a customer's bikini line, let's say, you will know the size of it, the colour of it, the location of it specifically, and really go into detail. That customer will then sign it off, you will sign it off, and ideally get a witness to sign it off, and then from that, you can follow up with the customer a couple of days later, make sure they're all okay, make sure that it's gone, and hopefully you can proceed on with that return of the customer, and obviously make sure on the client record card or on the system that they did incur a bruising, and obviously to avoid this, that and the other on the next time. So going back to reporting, always make sure you have that report book, because if that customer went away, they could think, oh, I'm gonna sue this person. They could get the partner to kick them in the leg or punch them in the leg to make it much, much worse, and they can go to like a no win no fee insurance company, suing solicitors, whatnot, and then obviously you're then getting letters through your door at a potential suing claim. So everything in business is protecting yourself, documenting everything, and making sure that everything's legit, everything's in place. And then from that, if it's a member of staff that has done the bruising, they need to be reassessed. They need to have additional training as a boss, get an understanding of why it happened, and why wasn't you waxing parallel to the skin. This is the strict training, this is the strict procedure of every treatment, and you as a boss make sure that you have some sort of documentation in place of where your staff can refer to a manual, videos or whatever it is, so that they can have that re-understand and retrain. They might have just had a bad day, an argument with a partner, but that could jeopardize your business. So it is very what am I trying to say, it's important that they know that they've done wrong and it needs to be rectified. It can't happen again. So having strict procedures in place for everything is really important in business.
So, we've seen a wide range of clients that's walked through our doors with completely different personalities. How would you advise someone to adapt themselves to a different sort of client that's different to them?
Okay, so obviously when people are booking in online, or you know, if you have like a telephone booking system or whatnot, you are going to get a variation of customers come through the door. When that customer first comes through the door, I've always taught staff that the first 5 seconds is very, very important to create the vibe. So that is being kind, understanding, welcoming, and accepting, you know, like, of that customer straight away. Because when a customer first comes in for an intimate wax, they're gonna feel nervous. They're gonna feel that anticipation of, should I be doing this? This is my first time. This feels really awkward, and you know, everything else. So creating that kind, nice, secure vibe in that first 5 seconds is so important. If a customer walks through the door and, you know, there's a bundle of staff members huddled around like a reception desk, that customer is going to feel intimidated straight away. I personally would never have anyone hanging around reception, or you know, gossiping on like the shop floor. Obviously, once you go into treatment, you can talk about what you want, and you know, let's, you know, not forget we're doing intimate service. There's a lot of, you know, gossip and sex, and you know, there's affairs, and you know, there's all sorts that get spoken about in that treatment room, because it's private, and because obviously we're trusted with their bits, so we do get to know a lot of information which is strictly confidential, between yourself and obviously that customer. So everyone is going to have a different personality, but as long as you're kind, accepting, understanding of everything. Every customer initially will say, oh god, I'm embarrassed of like how much hairs I've got. We wouldn't be in business if that customer didn't have mass hairs. The reason that they are here, and the reason that, you know, we are in this business, is because people are hairy. You want people to be hairy, because obviously then you can remove that hair. And making the customer understand that is that's important too. So obviously when it comes to rebooking that customer, if that customer has had, you know, a good experience, it's fast, it's efficient, that customer is going to be rebooking back in. And you know, what we would do as a salon is we would book a good, you know, 3 months in advance. I personally had bookings for a year and a half in advance when I was on the shop floor and, you know, doing treatment. So being in demand and filling up the space in the diaries, and you know, planning ahead is really important, because obviously you've got an understanding then of the money that you're going to be earning. So yeah, I hope I've answered that question, or questions.